Hello, we have a 2009 Audi A4 2.0 liter turbo, and today we're going to show you how to check and replace Evap purge valve. So first we're going to remove the cover. It just pops out held by these 4 grommets and the little bow joints over here. Try not to yank on it too much, don't break it. This is the purge valve over here. This is what we're going to be working on today. Number one thing to test it is you got to disconnect it and try to blow through it. If you are able to blow through the valve while it's off, it means the valve is no good, it's leaking. If you're not able to blow through the valve, then you're going to have to connect the scan tool and check if it opens. The purge valve is the number one cause of codes on Volkswagen and Audi families. Codes like Evap small leak detected, Evap large leak detected, or Evap incorrect flow detected. If you get one of those codes, this is the first thing you should be checking. Take this clamp off over here. Try not to break anything. There's a lot of plastic around. So pull the valve off the mounting bracket and try to blow through it. Yeah, I could blow through. My valve is definitely bad. If yours is not blowing through, even a little bit, it doesn't have to be like crazy easy blowing through, just a little air going through the valve while it's closed is enough for it to cause the codes to come up. So now if yours is not blowing through, connect the scan tool and activate it. Okay, we turn on the ignition. Do not start the car, just turn the ignition on. Go to engine, scan codes. Here we have a leak in the air system that is associated with the purge valve as well. Yeah, I forgot to say that bleed codes and air intake leak codes could be associated with the purge valve as well. RPM higher than expected, that could be it as well. Clear the codes. Now go to output tests. If you have a drop down menu, click the drop down menu and find the Evap purge valve. There you go. Select that and press start. It will be opening and closing the purge valve. So you go back to the engine bay. You could hear it ticking. That means that it's trying to work at least. So you try to blow through the valve again. If it opens and closes, then the purge valve is working fine. Just remember, when it's closed, when it's off, it cannot let any air in at all whatsoever. Now, if for some reason you didn't make it on time and the activation test ran out of time, it will shut the valve off and it won't activate again. Like, see, if you exit out, go back to activation test, try to activate it again, it'll give you an error. That's because each time the test has been activated, you have to exit out and start the car for at least 3 seconds. So yeah, we determined that the air valve was actually bad. Well, ours is leaking. We got a new one. It comes like this as an assembly with hoses. I'd suggest only use original valve. You don't want to do this job over and over again with aftermarket ones. This is crazy genius design of Audi engineers. If anything, I'll put the quick disconnect connectors on the valve itself. Well, this one is over here, which is relatively easy to disconnect, but the second one, this one, is right there, which is not that easy to disconnect. In our case, we're not gonna really care about the valve and the connector safety. Just make sure you don't break this line. This line stays in here. If you break the connector on the valve hose, I mean, it's okay, we're replacing it anyways. But if you put in the valve back in, well, be very careful with it. Now take the plug off. Remember, pushing it like you try to connect it, press on the tab, disconnect it. Well, we're gonna take this hose off when the valve is gonna be out of the car. Now we're gonna disconnect this connector. It's got this two tabs on the side. If you press on them, it disengages the locks. Now take this tube off from the PCV valve. The same way, you press on the sides of this tube, but see, and it kind of separates the locks. You're gonna need to take this T30 screw out and disconnect the bottom bolt, or bottom hose. There you go. Be careful, the manifold is plastic. You do not want to strip the thread or damage it in any other way. Well, this is the revised valve we have. The old version of this valve, see, there's a check valve on the end of the hose. The old version, the check valve is in the three-way over here. And the genius engineering idea, it's right there. See that check valve down there? Genius idea is to put a screw from the bottom of that check valve. So what I do to get to that bolt on the bottom, I take these two T30 screws out of the electrical connector bracket, and it gives you a little bit more access to that screw. You slide the wires away, and you could see the check valve. You can't see the bolt, but you could probably feel it. So here you go. This is the check valve I was talking about, and you may be able to see the bolt, the screw, on the other side of it. As you see, the screw is also, just to make the things a little bit more complicated, is a Phillips drive. So I take this little ratchet with a Phillips drive bit and try to locate the screw. Genius, just genius idea of putting a Phillips screw on the bottom of an intake manifold. Okay, so we got a loose. The biggest problem in here is that you cannot see what you're doing in there. There you go. So use a mirror just to help you out, so you could see where you're sticking the screwdriver into. There you go, the screw is out. Of course, we lost the screw. Try not to leave the loose screws on the engine or anywhere in the engine bay. It's never a good idea. Yep. Now that's it. The only thing we have to do is disconnect the lower hose, and we done with the removing it. By the way, like usual, always pay attention to surroundings. We see some coolant leaking somewhere in the water pump area. Guess we're gonna have to replace the water pump as well. Now we're gonna be working on this connector right there. Now this one, if you break the connector itself, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you don't break the manifold. That's gonna suck. Take a screwdriver, try to disconnect this connector. Be very careful. You do not want to break the manifold. That's the last thing you want to do, is break the manifold. You may need to use 2 screwdrivers. Disengage the hose from from both sides at the same time. And now navigate the hose out of the intake manifold, which is going to be a little bit of a pain as well. Not as much as taking that screw out, but a little bit of a pain there is anyways. This hose doesn't really bend easily, and it loves to get stuck. Make sure when you put in a new hose back in, don't break that. It's a genius idea. Probably gonna, if you follow the Volkswagen repair manual, probably have to take the intake off in order for you to change the purge valve. Genius. There you go. This thing is out. The good thing, I'm gonna have to put that screw back in. That's a good thing. Now we're gonna take this hose off, transfer it to the new valve. I'm gonna take a pick tool and gently open up the clamp so you could reuse it. If you're using pliers to get the hose loose, be careful, don't rip the hose. There you go. So we're gonna hose out, ready to put the new valve back in. Just note the position of the valve, how it's going to be sitting, so you could align the hose clamps to the position where it's going to be the most comfortable for you to take him out later. You see, a lot of times people install stuff without thinking of removing it later, and they're doing several parts at the same time, and then they need to work on one of them, and they have to redo the whole job that they did some time ago. So note the position of the hose clamps where you're putting them on, so you could take them out later. The crimp hose clamp tool, tighten the hose clamp back on, and now the fun part, stick it back in. Now this one we can't break, so you gotta be very careful. These plastic hoses, they're pretty flexible. when they new, but they're not rubber, so you can break them. It is harder to break them than harder to break the new ones than the old ones, but you can still break them. Twist the valve downwards so all the lines facing up. Align the lines to the proper routing where they used to be. When you're doing this job, make sure to note where the hoses are routed through. As you see, this upper ones goes under this line, in between these two lines, the few lines. Now we have our hoses in position. Due to the fact that the lower hose have a check valve on it, it's a little bit bigger, so it's a lot less space than with the old one. We're gonna need to align it with the connector on the intake manifold. And clip it in. You have to help it a little bit with the screwdriver. Just don't force it. The connector will break, so do not force this valve. It's a pain, kind of pain to get it in there, but do not force it. You will break it. Make sure it's clipped in all the way. See, mine didn't clip in all the way. It's a good idea to lubricate them before you put it in. So there you go. Check to see if it's connected. Yep. Alright. Now put the valve on its bracket. Realign this hose. Connected. T30 Torx screw. These screws are only in place to hold the hoses from wobbling around, so they don't have to be crazy tight. Don't forget it's plastic, it will strip. Electrical connector, make sure it's clipped in all the way. The PCV valve hose, make sure that's clipped in all the way. Put the cover back on and you're all set. Clear the codes. Take it for a ride, make sure it's running fine. And that's about it. Good luck.